Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with something very different. This is a new channel, so we're going to start laying out basics here. I'm not going to assume that everyone has seen everything from the reaction channel, so you may hear some of the same stories over again. But what we're going to do today is we're going to try to define oneness, and that seems a little bit silly because oneness is all things. But I'm going to teach you how I came to recognize the oneness and what happened. But in order to do that, I have to be very anecdotal. I have to tell you things from my own personal experience, and you can either believe them or not. That is up to you. Uh, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Uh, I thought long and hard about this, and I wasn't even sure that this was something that I really wanted to do, but it has been put on me, and therefore I have to do it. And it was quite forcefully put on me. The whole reason we have this channel now is because of what was put on me for not being fast enough in doing what I needed to do and allowing the reactions to distract me. So, we're going to start with the memory. I've relayed before, but you may not know, I had a very rough childhood, and part of that was moving around a lot, and part of that was being unsupervised a good bit. When I was very young, I don't remember exactly how old I was, I had my first near-death experience. Uh, I was probably 4, maybe 3, but probably around 4, and it's a very hazy memory. I remember that we had just moved into a house, that there was a chain link fence around the house, and me and my brother were inside while the adults were outside, and there was a Mickey Mouse nightlight. Now, if you didn't grow up in the 80s, you don't know how big of a deal that was, but to me, as a child, that was the coolest thing ever. And I had just recently been taught how to plug it in myself. And so what I did was, I plugged it in, I pulled it out, I plugged it in, I pulled it out, I plugged it in, I pulled it out. Well, one of those times when I went to plug it in, my finger was on the prong. And when I hit, it didn't release. I don't know whether my hand pushed it in and it held me there or what, but I stayed there for a good minute. And I don't remember any out of body experience or anything like that, but I do fully remember being completely out of control of my own body and being locked in to this. It was almost like I was being compressed, like I was just being held and I couldn't do anything. I'm sure it's the same as being tasered. I've never been tasered, so I can't say positively, but for my little 3, 4-year-old self, it was pretty bad. And when I broke loose, my entire thumb was black. When I ran out of the house, I ran over, and my stepfather, who it turns out was a bank robber, was outside drinking a Schlitz 16. And he handed it to me, and he's like, "Here, drink this. It'll make you feel better." And so I did. I drank that whole 16-ounce Schlitz at like 4 years old. So I spent the rest of the day in a haze. And it's the experience of the electrocution that is really what I'm wanting to focus on here today, because that compression, that tightness, that sense of disconnection from the body is an experience that has repeated throughout my life. But that is that is one of the ways that people are going to be able to identify with this experience the most. Is if you've ever been shocked, that comes through you, that whole I can't control this type of situation is a very brief taste of the oneness. Now, my next near-death experience that I remember, I was, let's see, it would have been 84. I was 7. So, yeah. And my mom was divorced by this time. The bank robber was gone. It was before Johnny. I remember that. And I've told the story about Johnny before, but Johnny was a really mean dude. And he was in a wreck. My mom was driving. She wrecked the car, and he got injured, and he was very mean after that. But this was before him, I remember, because there was no Johnny type situation in my life. But my mom worked nights, and it was up to me to watch my brother.
Well, it just so happened that we lived across the street from a park. Now, this is Slaughter, Louisiana in 1984. The entire population of the place was probably like 150 people. Like, it was really small, and that's an exaggeration, but it's not far off. Like, even today, with the urban sprawl coming from Baton Rouge, it is still rather rural out there. And in the 80s, there was a whole different way of life. Like, kids were largely unsupervised. And at 7 years old, I was looking after my 5-year-old brother, and we would go over to the park while Mama was sleeping. Like, she would sleep because she worked nights at the bar, and we went over to the park and we would play. And it was one of them old school parks. Like, we didn't have none of that fancy stuff. We had a slide, we had 4 swings, we had 2 seesaws, and we had one of the merry-go-rounds of death. And there was a water fountain, but no bathroom. And that was the park, right? And then next to us was the baseball park, and we would play over there. But today, I was on the slide, and I got pushed off. One of the neighbor kids had a relative visiting, and the relative wasn't happy that I was on the slide at all. And so he just pushed me off, and I fell out and I hit my ass. Like, I fell flat on my bum, and I separated at that point from myself. That's the best way that I can experience it. But I had that feeling again, that, and all I could hear was, and my whole everything, like, I was conscious, but I had zero control over my body, even though my body was moving. I was running. Well, I was picking myself up to run and starting to run. And I remember very vividly having to decide to get back in there. And it was a compression feeling to get back in there, but I had been separated and felt completely different from my body. Now, I was 7 years old, and that is completely anecdotal. And people are going to be like, well, you were a kid, you were making it up or whatever. And you're free to believe that. But what I am telling you is my lived experience of this thing. And looking back on that, I can see now how that is the separation of the soul and the flesh suit. Like, what we have here is just our car. This is our transportation for the soul to ride in. Flash forward. Now, it's important to note here that I have aphantasia. Like, I got in trouble in the 3rd grade because my teacher, Mrs. Scott, told us to picture a box. And I got in trouble because I can't picture a box. I can't picture a blade of grass. I cannot picture anything willfully. I cannot cause myself to see anything at all. What I see when I close my eyes is rather close to this. It looks like static on a gray screen, and with a lot of intentionality and a lot of willpower, I can clear that screen to where it is mostly one color, like mostly white or mostly black. But that is the extent of what I can do with it. I cannot form shapes. I cannot zoom in. Like, I can't do any of the things that most people can. Most people have this superpower where they can close their eyes and I can say, picture a box, and it just pops up and you can see that shit. Well, I'm not built that way. I can't intentionally see anything. And so, it's also important to note that I have been a drug user before, and I have taken psychedelics before, but this particular experience that I'm about to relay, every year, October, November, December, I quit all of my things. Like, I don't do anything anymore, but I used to do things. Now I use a natural herb for painkiller, and that is the extent of what I do. But even that, I let go for 3 months a year, because for those 3 months, all of my funds are going into making sure my kids have a good Christmas, to make sure that they know that their parents love them, because my wife loves giving gifts, and that is how she feels acceptance. And so when I had this particular experience, it was during one of the periods of not doing anything. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking, I wasn't doing psychedelics or any of that stuff. I was completely normal. And I had a meditative experience. Like, I've played and dabbled with meditation and intentionality and all of those things for most of my life, but I've never really taken them as seriously as I am these days. But I had a meditative experience, and I was doing a guided meditation, which is in itself difficult for me because I have aphantasia. And so therefore, when you're doing a meditation, they tell you, picture a garden. And in the garden is a set of steps, and the steps lead down to the ocean, and the ocean is nice and calm. I can't do any of that, right? All I can do is intentionally step my mind in directions, and that's the closest I can do. I can direct my consciousness. You can too, and we're going to get more into that. But at the time, my consciousness was rolling right around here in my solar plexus, and since then, I've learned how to intentionally shift that more and more. But for the most part, I was staying down here, and I was doing this meditative practice, and I'm getting deeper and deeper into the meditation. And then there came a point where I had to surrender. I had to completely give away sovereignty. And that sounds really weird, but I had to accept that there was a possibility that what I was doing, I was not going to come back from. And that sounds weird to say. It sounds weird to hear, I'm sure, but that is what I had to do, because in the breath practices, you get, like, the point of the breath is to distract you from the rest of your body. By the way, if you didn't know that. Now, it does help to hyperoxygenate. It moves things. But the counting of the breaths and the holding of the breaths have more to do with distracting you from the rest of your body and getting your intentionality focused in this direction. And so that's what I was doing, was intentionally doing. And I got to the point where I wasn't noticing the breath that I was trying to take care of. And I was trying to make sure you inhale for 10 seconds, and you hold for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 7 seconds. And I couldn't differentiate between when I was breathing in and breathing out. I was at a point of relaxation and complete unawareness of my body, and I'm just laying there and numb. And then I had to decide, okay, it will be okay if I don't come back from this. And I had to release the control over the breath that I was exerting. I had to quit trying to count the breaths, hold the breaths, and release the breaths, and just let it happen naturally. And when I did that, something amazing happened. And this is where it's going to get really woo-woo for y'all, but I experienced the oneness in a conscious state. I didn't fall asleep, I wasn't dreaming, but I saw. And for me, that is especially significant, because I can't trick myself into thinking that I saw. I actually saw. I was actually taken on a guided tour of the universe. We went and saw creation in its scope and glory. I saw the movement of the planets from a perspective and scale that I have not seen reproduced on the planet. The closest we can come to it is some of the satellites that are out there. The James Webb satellite that just sent back all these amazing pictures. But they were stills. This was in 3D stereo motion. And part of that was recognizing the oneness of all things. Everything in creation, all the things in the night sky, the things we can see and the things that we can't see, that are out there and that are moving, are all part of the same thing. We are all part of our harmonic. We are all part of this wonderful sound that is emanating from the voice of God. And That's the closest way that I can get to actually describing that. But it was at this point that I lost all the racism that I had been brought up with. Like, it was taken from me. It was literally like ripped out of me. I could no longer see color as a separator. I could no longer see sex as a separator. The only separation between us, and by us I mean me and you, whoever is watching this, the only separation between us is consciousness. We are here. Let's get into the meaning of life, right? We are here for a purpose. And that purpose is so that the divine may experience the mortal. This is divine revelation to me. This was part of this experience to me. And you can take from it what you will. There will be people who are severely upset by the things that I'm saying, because it will go against most people's belief systems. It will go against organized religions and the unorganized religions. It will go against some of the pagan beliefs. It will go against all of those things, because what I am saying was revealed directly to me. I'm not taking this book and reading to y'all from this book and the things that I learned from this book. And I did learn things from this book. And Bob Frizzell and these books. I did learn things from these books. But the things that I learned from them books are not exactly right. There's the Thoth thing. The Thoth thing is a good distraction. It is a good way to sell a lot of books. It's a good way to fill auditoriums. It's a good way to pack the halls and to make a nice life for yourself. And I'm not attributing any malice to Trinvalo on what he did there, or any of his predecessors on what they did there. But this whole situation with the emerald tablets is a real sticking point for me, because as part of my current meditative practices, I keep getting an image. And this image is of a tablet, and it's unreadable to me. I've never seen this thing in my life. And it's green, and it's not quite cuneiform, but it's definitely pictographic. And I can't pick out the details. I can't remember the details, but I see this tablet. And the one thing I know about this tablet, the only thing I know about this particular tablet, is that it is absolutely not Thoth. It is not what he was talking about. It is not the hidden tablets beneath the Sphinx. It is not that. It's the only thing I know about it. But it keeps recurring to me. Back to the oneness, right? So we are all connected. We are all, each of us, part of the divine. The divine is beyond the scope of incarnating inside of itself. You cannot have the absolute power of the Almighty God inside of himself with almighty power. It just can't work that way. So what he does is he uses us to experience the mortal. He uses us to experience joy and pain and grief and sorrow and happiness and love and sex and drug use. And all of these things are leading to experiences for the one. And we are but tiny, 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 tiny little slivers of the divine. Like, we are not, any of us, in and of ourselves, divine beings. But we are all very tiny parts of God. Our souls, the things that ride in this meat suit, they existed before we were here. We decided to come here. There's a whole thing coming out. I just saw David Icke talking about the soul trap and how this planet is a soul trap. And kind of, sort of, maybe like a little bit, because of the belief systems that we're brought up in, we are limited in the scope of the things that we see out of it. But we are, each of us, willingly participating in what is going on. Before we got here, we all got together. Every single person that you have ever met in your life, You talked to their soul before they incarnated and before you incarnated. And you decided on things. And the things that you decided on are things like this. You're going to say, in this life, I'm going to deal with poverty, I'm going to deal with drug addiction, and I'm going to deal with not facing my problems, right? Those three all run right hand in hand. And so Bob over here is like, okay, well, I will help you by being your boss, right? You're going to come and work for me at some point, and as part of that, if you take the responsibility to strive for the perfection of you, and you decide to deal with responsibility and resisting the drug usage and facing your problems, then this position is going to uplift you and enable you to rise above the experience of poverty that you are going to be born into. But if you decide not to, and you have that decision, that is your decision. If you decide that I'm going to continue to drink and I'm not going to face my problems and I'm going to be irresponsible, then this position that you're taking in my company is going to hold you back. It's going to push you down, and you will feel oppressed, and you will feel stagnant, and you will feel like I am achieving absolutely nothing in my life. All I am doing is grinding away. I am just wasting my soul working for someone else. That has got a lot to do with you. It has got to do with what choices you have made in your life. There are a lot of people who come from a lot of really bad circumstances, and some of them are like plants planted in fertilizer, right? And they grow and they flourish because they strive, and they see the goal as being up here, and they walk up the spiral of choice, because that's what it is. You have a choice, right? You can either choose to bring yourself higher, or you can choose to remain the same, or you can choose to descend into the darkness. That is the choice that you make with everything that you do. Every single thing that you do is adding into that choice. The choice that you make to sit down and watch Netflix instead of doing the thing that you know that you need to be doing, but you're like, I'll just do that later. That is making a choice to remain the same. When you make the choice, hey, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to hit a lick, and I'm going to take this dude and I'm going to take everything he's got and then I'm going to sell it, right? That is making the choice to drop down that darkness side of the spiral, because that spiral flows either way. Now, the harder choice is to say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to work and I'm going to grind this out, but I'm going to achieve my goals through this, and I'm going to set boundaries for myself, and I'm going to fix a budget, and I'm going to stick to my budget, and I'm not going to use today. I'm just not going to drink. Just for today, I'm not going to hit that bump. Just for today, I'm not going to do the thing that is what I really think I want to do. Because that thing that you really think you want to do, that drinking and the smoking or the sex or whatever it happens to be for you. And some people it's video games, some people it's like all kinds of stuff. And some of them can seem like really good things, but it's just a distraction. We're designed to stay the same or to descend. It is an intentional choice to raise yourself and to move into the higher and more towards your goals, because your goal as a soul is to exceed. It is to be abundant. It is to produce fruit. That is what your goal as a soul is, regardless of your choices. And at any point, no matter how bad you think you are right now, know this: you can turn around completely. You can decide today that I'm going to walk up. And one of the things you have to do for that is you have to make a decision, right? And that decision for me was to follow God. Now, Some people will not be comfortable using the term God. Some people use goddess. Some people call it Mother Earth. Some people call it Source. Some people just call it the One. Some people have different names for God. You have God, you have Allah. Some people talk about Buddha. Buddha wasn't a God. He was a whole different thing. I understand that. But like whatever it is that you are striving for, and for me, that is the Lord God Almighty, the Holy One who created all things. I strive to be a representation of Him. And I'm a tiny, imperfect representation, but I strive every day. I have admitted that I am a sinner and that my nature is to fall down that spiral, but that I have accepted the grace that He extended to me to walk up those steps, to walk around that spiral and go up towards the next highest part of the incarnation. I do believe that there is an afterlife. I don't believe that it is walking around in heaven singing praises all day. I have experienced being a part of God in a way that a lot of people can't. That a lot of people really, even if they get the experience, doubt it simply because they can visualize. It was made easier for me that I can't do that. The things that I talk about with the chakras and the 8 chakras, that is a direct revelation. I'm not pulling that from someone else. That is something that He revealed to me through meditation. Visually, I can't do that. Like, I can't fool myself into thinking that it was just me. I can't self-doubt myself into thinking, no, that wasn't God, that was me, because it was given to me in a manner that I can't replicate. I can't visualize anything when I close my eyes. If I am intentional, I can produce a white screen, but it takes me a lot of work. It really does. It's made some parts of my journey a little bit harder. It is a lot harder to balance your chakras and to make sure that the magnetics of the human body are correctly aligned. If you can't visualize that stuff, trust me on this. It is a lot harder, but I figured out a way to do it. We'll talk about that. Like, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is going to have to be geared towards people with aphantasia, because I have it. And so I can be a voice for those people. Now, there are a lot of really good meditative practices out there. There are a lot of bad ones too. Anybody that is telling you to call upon a specific name is not good, right? And when I say that, like the name of Yahweh, that is a personal one for me, is Yahweh. It is an unpronounceable name. The name itself was given because the name is beyond all things. It's 4 vowels, which in the Hebrew language couldn't even be written down because they don't write down the vowels. And it is unpronounceable because there is no consonants in it. It's Yahweh. Now, I believe that sound came from electromagnetic harmonics. And if you listen to some of the Native American chants where they're calling the same sound. And when you hear it's calling the same sound. And the sound is part of the oneness. It is when I was separated, right? I was separated from this body in a meditative state, and that's what I heard was the It's like magnetics. I'll try and find the sound again. I had played it before, and we will be doing sound videos because the harmonics help when you're raising your intentionality, when you're pulling your consciousness through your chakras, when you're forming your shields, when you're performing the materializations. That is very important. And sound helps with that. It really does. We're getting close on time. We will be doing a lot more of this format video. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of other people's content. It's just going to be me talking to y'all. And if that's what y'all like to see, if this topic interests you, there will be a lot more of this coming. So throw me a like, throw me a share, throw me a follow. Hit the red buttons, the bells, the notifications, all of the wonderful things, because That's what we need to do. We need to feed the algorithm. I hope that I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a very serious topic. We will definitely be digging more into this. I go back and I watch my own videos so that I know what to talk to y'all about next. And I wanted to lay down the definition of the oneness to help to explain just a little bit of what I mean when I say the oneness, because I will be talking about it a lot. It is the realization that we are all one. Now, we are different expressions of that one, and we are all here for a different experience. And some people's experience, they're choosing the bad side of things. They're walking down the spiral, and you have to learn to separate yourself from those people, because if you want to raise your harmonics, you can't hang around people stuck in their base. Like if you're working on your throat, you don't want to be around people that are stuck in their base. That's going to pull you down through your heart into your solar plexus. Like that magnetics is going to pull you down. Surround yourself with other people who want to raise, who want to live life and live life abundantly as it has been promised to us. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me. I am praying for you every single day. And until next time, this has been Pitt. Y'all have a great day. Be blessed. Love you.